Hi, do you know someone has made a way to personalize your Gran Turismo 4 copy? That's right, entering the Randomizer mod. Through this mod, the prize cards you will get after winning events will be randomized. But wait, the randomizer this time isn't just some RNG. The name that you will pick at the start of the game will determine the kind of cards you get throughout your playthrough. And so, I wondered if my name is good enough to win the game without spending any cent on buying cars from any dealership, new or used. Therefore, I welcome you all to the world of personalized Gran Turismo. After naming myself with the most appropriate name allowed to me, I arrived in the world of Gran Turismo with an empty garage and 10,000 credits to my name. In spirit with the Randomizer mod, I decided against going towards any used car dealership and instead took public transport towards the license center and got myself both National B and A licenses. As I played through these tests, I noticed that the engine sounds these cars boasted was different. This was especially noticeable on the Dodge Viper, which used to sound like this. While with this mod, it sounds like this. As someone who was entranced to the absolute orchestra that is car engines, this won me over in quite a heartbeat. As I was fortunate enough to claim the silver medal on all of those licenses, I got to start with 4 cars. So that did not come without any elbow grease, especially on the certain test featuring the R32 Skyline. Let's see, the first car I get is... Whoa! The Godzilla itself, right off the bat! This is the prize for bronze completion of the very first license, by the way. We started off in an amazing, legendary vehicle. Let's see the second car I was allowed to start with this time. An Audi Quattro. Nothing special to write home with, but I think I could enter some events and keep it interesting with this car, instead of bulldozing my way through with the Godzilla. Now, for the third prize car of the run, the car they awarded me for obtaining my National A license is... another banger! The Astra Touring Car! And now, for the fourth and final prize ride for my early exploits in the license center. And it's a special 350Z. Another car suitable to take on the earlier stages of the game. I've decided that I shall use the Quattro as my true starter car. Equip the car with soft sports, which at this point had drained more than half the entirety of my bank account. Turned off all the assists to ensure nothing could hold my Audi back, and gave the GT Auto worker a healthy dose of new car oil in exchange for high performance engine oil. Instead of starting off in the Sunday Cup like a normal person, I decided to take advantage of the car's drivetrain and entered the 4-wheel drive challenge. 4-wheel drive is supreme? I don't think so, but I'll play your game regardless. The first race was set in the abridged version of the Gran Turismo original, the Grand Valley. When I revved the Quattro for the first time, I noticed the beautiful sound the retro vehicle produced. Absolute art. I was too enamored by the Quattro's engine sound and almost rammed the Subaru before me. I made a quick turn to avoid an unwanted incident and proceeded to overtake the blue wagon. I tailed the pickup and overtook it right before the first corner. I decided not to tail the green Audi and instead went for the 3000 GT, as it provided a more stable line compared to the S4, which was acting like a snake in heat. I used the slipstream to pull myself forward and overtook the green car, tanked the Mitsubishi with a slingshot and powered over the RS2000 by taking the outside lane for more speed. I ensured the Quattro remained faithful towards the apex of the fourth corner and enjoyed more of its sound into the tunnel. I mean, listen to this. Pure orchestra. On the 6th corner, I controlled the Audi's speed to ensure the car did not go past the limits of the track and hit gravel, and as my Quattro was placed there, I decided to treat both the 6th and 7th turn as one big corner. This clever maneuver had allowed me to gain a significant lead of 3 seconds against the Australian Ford. I braked in time to take on the hairpin, and used all 210 horses under the Quattro's hood down the straights leading towards the second corner. As I processed the corner, I shifted down to keep the Audi away from the grass and followed the correct apex down turn 3 and the final hairpin of the track. I properly dealt with the 5th corner and once again decided that treating the last 2 corners as a single corner was the optimal thing to do. I raced towards the finish line and ended the race in first place, scoring my first 64 points way ahead of the rest. The second event was placed on yet another abridged edition of a Gran Turismo original track, the Autumn Ring Mini. An absurdly high A-spec points combined with 4 laps in the tiny track. And as I launched off the start, the guy in first already made a huge lead against the rest of the competition. If I were to win, I would have to drive aggressively, waste as little time as possible with the rest of the grid, and chase down that Audi before all hope was lost. I skipped over the curb to pressure the Caldina into giving away 5th place, tailgated the Peugeot before me, and used the slipstream to slingshot past the green racer between us. Another trick with the curb was done to take care of the Peugeot, and I relied on the Quattro's drivetrain to keep the car stable as I went a little extreme on the corner to quickly get the 3000 GT done and over with. From that point onwards, my mission was to catch up with the Audi and do an overtake. How would you cover such a gap, you ask? Through aggressive driving at a tint of corner cutting, of course. By the second corner of the second lap, I've managed to cut most of the gap between me and the race leader, sent the Quattro over the 4th corner, and finally managed to catch up with Silver Audi. However, an opportunity to overtake did not immediately present itself, and so I tailed the Audi as close as I could, and on the 7th corner, I braked much later than the rivaling Audi, resulting in an overtake required to win the race. I braked before the 9th corner, hit the apex of the turn and launched off the corner with a 2-second advantage over the Audi. On the 3rd lap, I properly ran my Quattro down the 1st corner, entered turn 2 with precision, handled the big chicane with grace and passed the first checkpoint 3 seconds ahead before the once dominant Audi. I sent the Audi past the 7th corner, hitting the apex and the optimal racing line, solidifying my dominion over the race. I applied a proper throttle control down the 9th turn, and as I passed the next checkpoint, the 5-second lead I had confirmed the fruits of my labor. Not only that, but I have also made quite a personal record on this lap as well. In the final lap, I tried to retrace the steps I did on the 3rd lap. I correctly calculated my cornering on the 1st corner and decided to not cut corners on the chicane this time around. I have basically won. I guess we'll drive clean in the final lap. Unfortunately, I underestimated the 6th corner, and as a result, my Quattro went too wide and was consumed by the greenery around the track. Lucky for me, assists were off and the drivetrain this Audi has kept it stable down the impromptu off-roading. Looks like the 4-wheel drive Volts was onto something about the superiority of this drivetrain. Despite my attempt at a final corner, this was clearly not a very good lap compared to lap 3. I'm pretty sure I've gone past the 45-second mark at this point. But as there was no racer left in this race that could contest my victory, I considered my main objective achieved. That was another dub for the books. The 3rd race was set in the east section of Suzuka circuit. Basically the very simple version that only features the S-curves. This time, I was facing not only one, but 2 big boys, the Dodge Ram and the Range Rover. As I launched off the grid, I went into a little altercation with the Green Wagon, as apparently, the Goober decided to take the same line as I did, only in a slower, clumsier way. Luck might have been on the wagon's side as the rest of the grid pulled away from me, but the first corner was coming up. Not even Lady Luck could save them from my superior cornering. A boast turned into fact right before the S-curves. The Green Wagon was through, and a short moment later, so was the Black Saloon. But I did not win. Not yet. First, I must take care of the Grey Peugeot and claim 2nd place. On the later part of the S-curve, the orange SUV was through. I carefully treaded along the corner and entered lap 2, 2 seconds earlier than the Rover. I used the white line on the track as a cue to brake, and then the curves present on each curve help me in determining the apexes of each corner. That's a corner well tackled. Into the second one, controlled the gas down the 3rd corner, and was quite taken off guard by the 4th big curve. Despite the small shake-up, I avoided sending the car towards the non-asphalt things on the side of the track and went into lap 3 with an outstanding lead. I jammed the throttle down the straights, using all the power this Audi can muster, and braked just before where the white line ended. To avoid a nasty incident of me overshooting the corners into the sand, I brake more in the middle of the corner, and drive towards the apex of the next turn. On this lap, I used the curbs of the first curve, controlled my acceleration down the second one, sent the car over the third, and slowed down enough to tackle the odd curve out. In the end of this race, I managed to score the 3rd win required to complete the 4-wheel drive challenge, as well as a personal best and yet another 1.5 grand into the account. The semi-final race was set on the El Capitan, a road track placed around a mountain filled with various types of corners and elevation changes. Upon launch, I was shown the inferiority of my Quattro's power in comparison to his rifles, but I refused to surrender, knowing that the many corners in where I could gain advantage. By the third corner, I have caught up with the grid, and soon it was time to climb up the podium one position at a time. The TT braked too early and was sent towards last place. I inserted myself to the crowd of Audis and a stray Subaru right on the entrance of the hairpin, performed a double overtake and slingshot past the yellow saloon before the hairpin's exit. I tailgated the Peugeot down the track to keep up and took advantage of my opponent's poor judgment, snatching the first place away from the Peugeot. Although the French racer was not very happy with the turns of events and tried to regain first place. With full speed, I raced past the 8th corner and carefully drove past turn 9 and 10. Apparently, the Audi struggled to get past the second hairpin, and so I decided to not power it through and instead prioritize caution and form. On the 12th corner, the Audi faced quite a steep climb, allowing it to go full power while maintaining a tight racing line. I slowed down right before the downhill part of the track enough to avoid trading paint with the guardrails and almost scratched the car off the tunnel walls. To ensure a smooth cornering experience past the 16th corner, I minimized power and let the Audi dance through the corners. This consistent performance was carried through the 18th corner, and on the final hairpin, I remained on the inside to shorten the distance I had to race through. I entered lap 2 4 seconds ahead of the Peugeot, a sign that the tables had truly been turned. I employed a proper throttle control down the first corner, remained on the inside to better take on the next turn, used the shadows provided by the trees on the side to brake before the 4th corner, and tried to smoothly proceed it down the 5th corner around the inner bit of the track. But something seemingly invisible rejected my car, causing it to be directed to the walls on the right. I braked to avoid a distasteful crash, went past the apex point of the 6th corner, and continued racing as if nothing happened. I experienced yet another close call right before the bridge, but I shook off the tension and streamlined my approach down the 9th and 10th corner, allowing for an optimal, clean cornering. I thought my Audi could handle the hairpin on that level of speed, but that was quite conceited and the car understeered. If I didn't brake there, I would probably have been snagged by the walls. I kept the Audi composed up to the 2nd corner and picked that specific point to enter the descent, allowing myself a wider area of play to combat the terrain. I hammered down the gas on the downhill, trusting my Audi and its drivetrain to keep its composure. I went down the 16th corner properly, and on the final hairpin, I remained as close to the curbs as possible and dashed towards the finish line. Another win, another 159 points into the records. The final race took place on the Fuji Speedway. Should I win, the game will award me with 150 points, a testament on how backwards my Quattro was compared to the rest of the grid in terms of power. To make things worse, this layout has a very long straight section. While on the El Capitan, I relied on better cornering, there aren't that much corners in this here track. As I launched off the starting line, my fears was confirmed by how fast the rest of the grid pulled away from me. I opted for an aggressive approach down the first couple of corners, tailed the Caldina down the 2nd corner. The slipstream helped me in overtaking the red Audi, gaining 5th place. However, that victory was short-lived, as this brief section once again showed how inferior my Audi was in terms of power. On the Coca-Cola, however, was where my Audi shined. I managed a double overtake through late braking and slingshot past the Caldina. I thought I'd be outpowered on 100R, but the Caldina hesitated, and it meant defeat for the Toyota as I gained P3. I tried tailgating the Beetle, but out of sheer power, the Beetle pulled away. On this lap, I decided against cutting the chicane and instead followed the track in a not so illegal way. I overtook the Beetle, and at that point, my focus should have been chasing down the race leader. However, on the Panasonic, the Beetle managed to wrestle away P2, and I must partake in a rather hopeless rapid chase down the straights. Even the Caldina is overtaking me. This is insane. Before the first lap, I managed to reclaim the bronze medal and stay close to the Beetle throughout the straights before turn 3. I did a little funny on the Coca-Cola and defended my post around the 100R. On the hairpin, I climbed up the curbs for a tighter racing line, and I noticed the Audi had gotten too far from me. This situation didn't really give me any other choice, so I did this. I controlled my throttle down the Panasonic and pushed the Audi to its limits down the long straights before the finish line. These actions had awarded me the final victory required to complete the 4-wheel drive challenge. All 5 races had been won. Now for the prize ride. Before, I'll get a triathlon race car for my troubles, a rad but not that useful considering the car was a concept and thus cannot be used in a vanilla version of the game to race in almost all of the events available in that game. But that will change through Randomizer, and the car that I'll get from this event is... At least it's not banned from like 90% of the content of the game just because. Maybe I can use this car for some event later. While I pondered on the Celica's uses, I came across quite the event. The showers... Schwarzwald Liga A, an event exclusive towards German cars with less than 300 horsepower. They don't really say the power limit, just this fake car list, but looks like my Audi was qualified to enter, and so into the races I've gone. The first race was set inside the lush greenery of Trial Mountain. Apparently, winning the race would award me with 148 A-spec points, meaning that this race won't be a simple walk in the park. But I fought worse, and with that confidence, I steeled myself and got to it. Right upon launching, a BMW was overtaken, and apparently, I was fast enough to catch up with the rest of the grid. Right around the third corner, however, the BMW also managed to catch up and even regain its post. On the corner, I decided not to slow down and took the beaten path and managed a triple overtake, landing me on P3. I remembered this exact corner from tryharding the license test, braked to the second gear and took on the inside of the corner, tailing the Audi before me. Once the Audi braked, I took this chance and purposefully braked much later to claim P2. I stepped on the gas on the fifth corner and yanked the wheels to the right, putting the face in the Quattro to pull through. And man, did it pull through. I managed to overtake the Z4 before the tunnel and went for the inside bit before the corner to get more room for the car to turn. I managed the corner without leaving bits of the car on the walls and hammered down the throttle on the tree covered straight. Unfortunately, I overestimated the Audi's cornering capabilities, and as a result, the car understeered right on the 9th corner. I had to slam the brakes even more just to avoid the car from making contact with the natural greenery this track was built around. I minimized the throttle down the 12th corner and sent the Audi through the next corner, and so into lap 2 I had gone, a second earlier than the red C4. Right before the tunnel, I slowed down, aiming for the insides of the corner, but the car was too fast and was stuck in the middle, and I misjudged the timing on the 5th corner, resulting in an unexpected bounce off to the stone walls on the side. This had slowed me down, but not enough to strip me of my victory. On the 8th corner, I went on the inside, and this time, the Audi went down to the corner exactly the way I wanted it to go. A perfect execution down the corner, and a distinct gap divided me from the rest. I ensured the car went past the 12th corner smoothly, down the 13th corner following the proper racing line, and got into the final lap with an outstanding lead. This time, I managed to create a tight line down the 4th corner, properly time my cornering on turn 5, and on the 8th corner, I maintained the optimal route down the corner. On the 9th corner, the Audi no longer has that unpleasant understeer as the tires had reached their prime, and I got out of the corner faster. In the end, I managed to score the first win of the German event. The second race was set in Paris, featuring sharp corners, tight roads, and dastardly hairpins. Perfect for my Audi to smoke the competition. Around the first corner, I tailed the blue BMW and made my way to 5th place. In quick succession, I snatched 4th away from the Z4, and my eyes then was set on the podium. I carefully ensured the car did not touch the walls dividing the racers from the audience and tailed the blue Audi on the straights. As my Audi was limited in power, I thought there was no need to brake, which was the correct choice as I grew closer towards my competition. Before the 7th corner, I somehow forgot that the opponents I raced tend to brake early, and as a result, I caused a tiny chain bump, which ultimately affected the Golf in P2. I shot past the Audi towards P3 and fought the Golf around the 7th corner and was stopped by the deathly hairpin which was featured on the 8th corner. I weaved between the Golf and the BMW, and after a brave attack, finally managed to reach 1st place. I blocked the BMW from passing at the 9th corner and gunned it. I remained wary of my opponents down the straights, and on the chicane, I kept my speed to the minimum, keeping in mind the kind of cornering I'll have to do to exit this series of sharp turns. The 12th corner was a bit more relaxed compared to the rest. I could go a bit more aggressive on the corner in order to grow a meaningful distance to protect myself from my rivals. But that was the calm before the storm. On the last set of corners, I prioritized caution to smoothly bring myself around the tight twists. I went past the sharp first few corners, putting safety first to avoid pinballing across the walls, refused to brake on turn 6 and kept up my pace against the Golf, who managed to keep up on the straights. I pinpointed and went across the apex of the 7th corner and admittedly went a tad too wide on the hairpin. Upon exiting the 9th corner, I hammered down the straights, putting all 200 horses under my quattro's hood to use and controlled my throttle down the chicane. After a smooth cornering around the chicane, I went for the next corner and had gotten as close to the walls as possible for the best racing line. I kept my speed below 100 kilometers down the last set of corners of the lap and finished the second lap in sub 1 minute and 45 seconds. I made my way through the first 4 corners carefully, and as soon as I exited the 5th corner, I went for it, powered through the straights and sent the Audi across the 6th corner, furthering my lead over the Golf. On the 7th corner, I ensured the car was slow enough to properly drive around the corner, and this time, I managed to hairpin well, no unwanted understeer at last. I took on the chicane carefully, ensured a streamlined route without touching the walls, and made it past the 12th corner with little to no issue. At that time, I managed to finally streamline the last set of corners and made it through the 3rd lap in record time. On the final lap, I rode on top of the curbs on turn 1, carefully drove past the 4th corner, and as soon as I left the 5th turn, I hammered down the throttle and once again sent the quattro through the 6th corner. I braked before the 7th turn, took a forceful route down the hairpin and slowed down on the chicane, ensuring a safe and smooth experience. This level of performance was carried over down the 12th corner, allowing me to maintain a 3-second gap against the Golf, streamlined my approach towards the final set of corners, and managed to set another personal best and the 2nd win on the event. The final race was set on a full version of Autumn Ring. The expected difficulty was still the same, 148 points. On the first corner, I managed to catch up with the rest of the racers. On the chicane, I decided to do a bit of trickery and jumped over the set of curbs. Before the chicane's exit, I managed to climb to 5th and carefully went through the 4th corner. I tailed the green Audi all the way across the 7th corner. Unsurprisingly, the TT managed to pull away. I tried to overtake the green Audi on the roundabout, but the TT was simply too fast to fall victim to that maneuver. It was not until the 10th corner I managed to deal with the green car. However, another horrible news came to pass. The Z4 had built a massive lead against the rest of the grid. In order to catch up, I must do away with the rest of this grid as soon as possible. I sent the Audi through the 12th corner and tailed the BMW in order to do an overtake, but no matter what I've done, there was still no overtaking the small BMW. I entered the 2nd lap before, and the Z4 was getting even further. I tried to overtake my opponent through a tighter racing line down turn 1. It didn't work. I cut the 2nd corner a bit, and would you look at that? It worked. I opted for the aggressive approach down the chicane and grew closer towards the S3. On the 5th corner, I dueled the wagon for the silver medal and ultimately won. The Audi managed to overpower my car on the straights, however, and briefly reclaim P3. Unfortunate for my rival, I managed to make through the 6th corner better and we took P2. From that point, my focus would be to drive as fast as I could to close that gap between me and the Z4. I controlled my throttle down the roundabout, keeping the line tight and short, streamlined my approach towards the 9th and 10th corners, and by the 14th corner, I managed to create a gap between me and the other drivers in P3 and below. It was the 3rd lap and the Z4 was 2 seconds and a half ahead. There was no doubt I was faster than the Z4. The question was whether I was fast enough to make a comeback from such a worrisome situation. I dealt with the 2nd corner full speed, and on the chicane, I just absolutely sent to quattro down the series of corners. This bravery had gotten me close towards the Z4. By the 6th corner, I was capable of pressuring the Z4 and had gotten very close on the 7th turn. But still, no dice. I tried to slingshot past the BMW, but the car still had the power to pull away. I tailgated the BMW even more, and on a roundabout, I have finally reached P1. I defended my position all the way to the 9th corner, and by the final corner of the lap, I've managed a small gap. which gets erased along the straights because of the sheer difference in power. I went deep on the first corner, which prevented the Z4 from attacking, followed the proper racing line down turn 2, aggressively made my way past the chicane, and by the first checkpoint, I've successfully made a second long lead against the Z4. I went past the roundabout with precision and perfectly went through the 10th and 11th corners. This beautiful performance was maintained past turn 12, and on the final straights, I've secured myself the lead through a noticeable distance between me and the Z4. That's the final win needed to complete the event. All 3 events have been cleared. Let's see the prize right this time. And it's a wagon. I think I'll keep that one for now. Maybe it'll be useful in the future, who knows? Worst case scenario, I can always use the car for Sunday Cup. With more cars inside the garage, I now have plenty of events to go through. Will I race with the Celica in the FF Challenge? Or will I clear the Sunday Cup in the Caldina? Or will I take on the remaining license tests so I can enter the proper events for my Godzilla? You will find out next time. Special thanks to TheAdmiester for the Randomizer Mod, as well as Silent Warrior 1 for the HD HUD and user interface. Keep up the good work.